Hey guys, welcome to the Drug Room Experts. This is Zaib. In all my Sunday morning glory, um, especially Liverpool का match अभी देख के बैठा हूँ मैं, and it is yeah. For those of you who follow the Premier League and Liverpool, they know what I'm talking about, and they know how much of a pain I'm in right now. But you know, the show must go on, and I had an episode to record, and I thought, you know what, eh, it's never a good idea, in my opinion, to record an episode after watching your team play, and because it could go either way, right? And I've recorded podcast after watching a few games, in a few times actually, and it's a hit or miss, man. I mean, if your mood is as volatile as it is for me, especially if it depends on certain things going your way, and you're emotional like that, then yeah, it becomes really, really tricky and difficult. But khair, anyway, moving ahead. आज का episode is dedicated to the man, the myth, and possibly the legend, Fawad Alam. तो फवाद आलम के ऊपर बेतहाशा um, discussion तबसरा हो चुका है for the past few weeks and months, actually more than a year, ever since he was included in the squad. And there's a lot of opinion, and this guy has been spoken about, to death. इतना इसके बारे में मटेरियल है ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल, और इतना ओपिनियन है इसके ऊपर. लेकिन वन थिंग आई नोटिस इज के फवाद आलम के ऊपर जो भी मटेरियल है और जो भी ओपिनियन एग्जिस्ट करता है वो बड़ा मोनोटोनस है. आई थिंक बहुत सारे लोगों का एक तरह का ओपिनियन है, एंड मैं अपना ओपिनियन देने से पहले मैं वो वाला ओपिनियन भी सामने रखूंगा कि मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग में वो ओपिनियन क्या है. सो एंड it is monotonous, as I said. It's very predictable. Lekin at the same time, it's understandable as well. It becomes he's a story in itself, and it would be rather unfair to him, in my opinion, if so much hype wasn't built around him. So has been his life and his career so far in Pakistan cricket. So before I get into that, quick recap of my earliest memories of Fawad Alam, and where did he stand for me? So Fawad Alam, I've never been a fanboy, per se, and I'm old enough to remember and that not many people were his fanboys, from day one. तो जो अभी इतने बड़े लोग उछलते पड़ रहे हैं उसके पीछे के इनजस्टिस और ये 10 साल आया whatever जो भी बात है, they were nowhere near like close allies or fanboys of him back in the day. But that's understandable. New guy, didn't really, unassuming personality. And what I remember him from is actually the semi-final of the 2009 T20 World Cup. I think he was a squad player in that World Cup for us. And I remember him, I think South Africa batting last, I think. So South Africa was batting last and chasing down some total that we had put up, and obviously with Ajmal and Amir and at his peak, and Omar Gul, any total over 140 was insurmountable for any team in front of us, let alone South Africa, who have been really inconsistent against us, especially on home and or on neutral grounds, if you like, not in South Africa as much. But the wo innings chal rahi thi, I remember him. I think Amir was bowling at the death, and he bowled a good yorker. The ball goes to mid on, and Fawad Alam was fielding there, and he was known at that point. Uska ek image ban chuki thi that he's a good fielder, and I remember him being a very good fielder too. And he picked up the ball through threw the ball straight to the non-strikers end where Amir was standing waiting for a run-out chance. The ball, it was a direct hit and it was run out. तो वो मुझे याद है in the 2009 World Cup. I hope I'm remembering this correctly. But that was I think that is my earliest memory of him. And then fast forward, the whole Sri Lanka thing happens. He scores a 160. And honestly, I was very surprised when that happened, especially when he was picked as an opener or played as an opener, and he scored like 160 odd. Pakistan still lost the test match, but yeah. So that happened. I didn't follow that test match, or I don't remember following it as actively. I think क्योंकि मुझे ज़्यादा memories नहीं है. I may have followed it, but it was because we lost. तो मेरा memory ने उसको फौरन write off कर दिया होगा मेरे दिमाग में, perhaps. But that was another memory. And then I remember that really epic chase in the Asia Cup in Bangladesh versus Bangladesh. Bangladesh scored like 300 against us, against our bowling attack. And that was, I think, probably around the time when our bowling attack was starting to, experience its inevitable, which, we can say now, inevitable decline. So, and we were like losing wickets almost like, and we were kind of going, like we had to go and play aggressively because it was a big total chase. And at the end, Fawad Alam, steered us along with, I think Umar Akmal probably finished the game. But Fawad Alam, I remember, I think, and also Ahmed Shahzad scored a century in that game, if I'm remembering it correctly, and we actually won. And I think Afridi played a blinder as well. So wo game mujhe yaad hai, and then he vanished, he completely vanished. So fast forward, 2018-19 पे जब ये discussion होना शुरू हुई कि why isn't Fawad Alam being picked, and क्या नाइंसाफी है, और वो सारी लॉबी, कराची लॉबी, फलाने माँ के सारे ड्रामे चलना शुरू हो गए. That's when I picked up like he appeared on my radar again, and I started looking at his numbers, and kind of makes sense, the hue and cry at the time, but I had no idea about his stance until very recently. Actually, I think it was 2019. I think end of 2019 when Pakistan were like due to tour somewhere, and I was watching like some of those A side jo hote na, side matches in Pakistan. Uski highlights dikh raha tha. Yeah, maybe it was a tournament, a local domestic tournament. So usme Naseem Shah, I think, picked up a fifer or something like that, and I was watching. One of the wickets he picked was Mr. Alam, or that was the first time I saw his stance, and I was like, "What? This is not how I remember him." And for some reason, I remember him him batting against Bangladesh. I remember him batting against Sri Lanka, when he scored at 160. But I don't remember watching his stance so elaborative. And so when I saw that, I was like, "What is this, like a joke? Is this like, what's this technique?" And it was very unconventional. So I mean, I think Shivnarayan Chandrapal came to mind immediately. And this stance he has is far more elaborative than than the Great West Indian. But even that, I mean, Shivnarayan Chandrapal's stance, even at the time when nobody batted like that, was very elaborative and was very out of the box. So for Fawad to trump him, had to be something really elaborate, and it was. So I saw that, and I remember watching the highlights of that game where Naseem picked up 5 or something like that, picked up a bunch of wickets, and he dismissed Fawad Alam as well. And I was like, "What the hell is that?" So that I remember that as well. Anyway, regardless of his stance, he was scoring a shit ton of runs in the domestic circuit, and which is why there was a lot of controversy around why isn't he getting picked. And then so meri understanding, like the whole hue and cry about his selection or lack thereof, is कि जो arguments मुझे सुनने को मिले. One, जो कि the biggest argument, कि he's a Karachi guy, so obviously, the likes of Inzamam and, the Punjabi lobby didn't want him in the side for any reason, for some reason. And so that was the one reason. That was the first thing that I heard about him. Then there was, talk about him scoring a lot of runs in the domestic circuit, and he was like other players were getting preferential treatment. And Inzamam's name gets flashed really, really predominantly in this whole episode around Fawad's selection. And I think it's it's very convenient to forget that it's not just Inzamam that was part of that decision making. I think it was Sarfraz Ahmed, who was the captain, Mickey Arthur, who was the coach, and you can say whatever you want to say about Sarfraz, but I think we all agree that Mickey was a really, really tough guy. He was opinionated. He wasn't shy about giving his opinions. So if he was pushing, indeed, for Fawad to be included in the side, I think we would have known by now, at least by now that he doesn't work for Pakistan. So no hue and cry from him as well. And then also no particular hue and cry from Sarfraz as well, to be honest. And you can argue that Sarfraz, is not like an aggressor in the media per se. And then also he was the captain. He didn't want to ruffle any feathers with the PCB and kind of criticize their selection policy, what have you. But I'm sure internally he would have brought it up if he was interested in the batsman. But I think the fact is that our middle order was pretty well established, and so needless to it's very inconvenient that we forget that the time where Fawad was scoring these large amount of runs in the national circuit was the time when Misbah was in the middle, was the time when Yunus Khan was in the middle order, was the time when Asad Shafiq was coming up and establishing his place, was the time when Azhar Ali was coming up and establishing his place. Now you may argue he could have been used in either of those positions or instead of either of those. Of course not Misbah and Yunus, because they were the bedrock of that middle order. But that's a preference. I think one thing that I really fail to understand, जो लोग criticize करते हैं selections को, and you have your Dr. Nomans and you have your Shoaib Akhtars and Rashid Latifs, all of these guys who are at the forefront of criticizing whenever something happens with Pakistan cricket or anything happens with Pakistan cricket. They want to give a very stark different opinion, as if they just have to disagree with the PCB, and agreeing with the PCB will mean that they've lost their credibility, weirdly. तो वो समझते हैं कि उनका फर्ज है. But जो criticism सुनने को मिलता है उस around our selection, तो इसमें मेरा opinion selection के ऊपर क्या है. देखो, again, no expert but drawing room expert per se, for sure. तो मेरा 2 cents इसमें है. Selection is a very subjective issue. Now you can bring in stats and you can say, yaar, isko quantitatively dekho, number ke upar. I agree partially only. Because aisa nahi hota, yaar. Aap different sports mein, football, because I follow football, the most after cricket, or at least maybe even more than cricket. But football ke andar, the coach and the manager, he's out there to win games. Even in cricket, they're all out there to win games for their teams. And so they're going to pick a squad. They're going to pick the starting 11 that works for the team, that works for them to win the game. That's all. That's all what it is. Now, they're going to back themselves up by bringing in stats and saying, yaar, ye banda main is pe paisa isliye lagaunga kyunki I'm going to bring him into my team because he's done well historically and he has good stats, blah blah blah. But there's also this element of likability, and then also just feeling, that feeling your selections out as well. It's a lot about gut feelings too. And unfortunately for Fawad, um, he wasn't able to inspire the selectors. In my opinion, I I, I am my opinion about Fawad is I am extremely happy that he's doing well now, or he's part of that middle order, and he can really establish his place now. He's 34. Pakistan cricket historically, they can 34 is pretty young. He could still play 5 6 years. Misbah went out to play until he was 40. Yunus Khan played pretty deep into his 30s as well. Though aisa nahi hai ki his career is lost. I think there's still a lot of runs in this guy. So I'm really happy with that. But then at the same time, I get really pissed off when I see people crying about, 10 saal kaun, 10 saal zaya ho gaye, 10 saal zaya ho gaye. Um, and Fawad, says it brilliantly. I mean, if you really want to sympathize with someone, let's hear it from the horse's mouth, right? In this case, the horse being Fawad, and he disagrees. He says, "No, I didn't waste those 10 years. Those 10 years were building me up to be where I am right now, and that is not gracious of him. He's not being politically correct. I think that's what he believes. You can see it in his eyes. He's not trying to play smart. Um, and you can tell when someone's trying to play smart and trying to really downplay any conflict. But Fawad से मुझे वो vibes नहीं आती. I think Fawad actually means that. तो so that's what he believes. तो अब जो उसके proponents हैं और जो उसको support करते हैं, myself included, I have the obligation to believe him. So I'm not going to be Shah ka Wafadar and still raise my voice, for him as if something really bad happened. वो जो एक लिसानी बुनियाद पर जो आर्गुमेंट पेश किया जाता है कि he's उर्दू स्पीकिंग कराची का बंदा है, that's why he was excluded from the side. It's very convenient to forget that Sarfaraz is also, but he was the captain of the team for 3 4 years, and I think he would have been in a very strong position to really include him had he wanted to, but he didn't. That doesn't mean he hated Fawad. He just he was not convinced, and that's fine. Sometimes you're just not convinced, and sometimes you make a call. I mean, I'll give you an example. Football ke andar, there's so many stories. When a player starts, there's scouts, there's managers and ex-players. They look at the player play and they say, yeah, aage nahi jayega. He's not gonna make it. He's too weak. He's not too physically strong. He's not intelligent enough. He doesn't read the situation correctly. और वो सारी चीजें जो होती हैं, जो cliches होते हैं, pundits use करते हैं, and ex-players use करते हैं, right? And then how many examples do we know कि वही player उठा के आगे becomes the best player in the world? I mean, the one that I remember top of my head is Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, I remember when he started out, he used to take free kicks for Man United. And Oves, if he's listening, he's going to back me up on this. He was always hitting the shin pads. Itni bekar free kicks hoti thi uski. He was always hitting the shin pads. At a time, I remember जब हम लोग यूनाइटेड का मैच देख रहे थे, मेरे भाई के साथ मैं देखता था, तो जब फ्री किक रोनाल्डो को देते थे तो हम लोग कहते थे यार, मैं अपने भाई से मजाक में बोलता था कि ये तो नीचे पैर पे ही मारेगा क्योंकि he can't take a free kick. So our opinions of him was not really high, and the opinions were shared by some of the biggest pundits around at the time. But lo and behold, we know who Cristiano Ronaldo is now. So these things happen. That doesn't mean कि Cristiano Ronaldo से कोई नफरत थी किसी को, या कोई लिसानी बुनियाद पे कोई अना थी, या कोई बोझ था. No, it's an honest mistake. Now, Fawad के साथ भी same चीज है. Like if you, in all honesty, you who's listening to me right now, whose opinion, as much as I respect, is que Fawad was wrongfully, excluded because of, favorism or सब चीजें ये सारी. जो controversial reasons है of his exclusion. If you really believe in that, again, completely okay with me. But imagine you're a selector. Okay, you go out and watch, games, a cricket match, and you see this guy standing front on with his bat, pointing towards the mid wicket or something like that, and he's just literally standing and looking at the bowler as if he was, fielding, obviously, like almost right. And then he goes and plays a blind or whatever. But you would be like, bro, if I'm gonna bring him on and into international cricket, yeah, maybe he can survive in domestic cricket where he's probably smarter than the other players around him. But I would be hesitant, and you would be as well, to say, okay, he's this guy is gonna nail your Pat Cummins. This guy's gonna nail your Dale Staines and Rabadas and Mitchell Starks, and Mitchell Johnson. That is a stretch. It would have been a stretch to even imagine that. You would be like, nahi yaar, I know he's getting a lot of runs, but just not comfortable. Just not comfortable in seeing him, bat in Australia against Mitchell Stark or Mitchell Johnson in their peak, with that stance on, in Perth. Hey, it may have worked out. It may have worked out. But at the time, jab aap ye dekh rahe ho, so you're assessing it, right? You're trying to picture it in your head. Okay, this guy's standing at Lords. You have Broad and Anderson coming steaming towards him to bowl at him. You're imagining that, and you're saying, well, maybe on dead wickets he can probably shuffle around or wo jaldi position mein aa sakta hai. But what if the seam movement is peak, in England, jahan par ball itni hilti hai, in New Zealand, where although he scored 100 later, but you would be challenged to imagine that, right? And that's fine, right? Scouting errors happen all the time. That's what I feel like it's an error. And also 10 saal zaya karne wala jo argument hai, that also I kind of like, it's how conveniently they forget the person who they blame for this, partially blamed for, is Misbah. He made his debut, like he was introduced into the side as a kya kehte hain usse, a recurring member of the team when he was in his mid 30s. So he's been, a result of that same system, whether you like the system or not, but that was the system. Same for Ajmal. Ajmal made his debut in his 30s. Now we're watching, what's his name? Noman Ali making his debut when he's 34. And the list goes on. Tabish, he's 36. Abbas, I think, also was in his early 30s or mid 30s when he made his debut. So these examples are far and recurring. It's not just like Karachi players. There are other players in that mix as well. So to outrightly suggest कि फवाद के साथ कोई बहुत बड़ा एक धोखा हुआ है, हैंड हुआ है, I think it's a little naive. I think it's very selective, क्योंकि हम एक एग्जाम्पल को उठा के देख रहे हैं. मैं क्या समझता हूँ कि फवाद के साथ क्या हुआ है? I think it's a collection of a lot of issues. Number one, his technique was not inspiring, to be honest. It's effective. That's great. We know that now. Like so far. But he was not, and it was not an inspiring technique, imagining him playing against Broad and Anderson in England and what have you. Number two, I think that shouldn't be an excuse to exclude a player agar uski technique unconventional hai, in my opinion, because Stephen Smith is an example of that as well. But he's still not really unconventional Fawad style. He's not even like close. He's not unconventional Shivnarine Chandrapal style. So, but he still has some unconventional traits about him as a batsman, Stephen Smith. But he was still persisted with. He was picked up. He was made captain. वो सब चीज four-sidedness होनी चाहिए थी selectors की and ex-players की, which at the time जितने भी अभी रो रहे हैं ना, किसी की नहीं थी, किसी की भी नहीं थी. वरना ये 10 साल से रो रहे होते, कंसिस्टेंटली हमें सुनने को मिल रहा होता कि यार ये 10 साल से इंसान चीख रहा है कि इसको खिलाओ खिलाओ खिलाओ, एंड आई वुड हैव बीन मोर रिस्पेक्टफुल टुवर्ड्स एंड सेड यू नो व्हाट, ही वाज राइट. पर वो अभी जब उसने 12-10 हज़ार रन बना लिए, बना के वो लाइक, आपने नहीं देखा ना, आपने भी उसके रन्स देखकर फैसला किया, ठीक है ना. अभी भी उसके रन्स देखकर मैंने फैसला किया. तो आई थिंक वो वाला जो एलिमेंट है कि आपने फोर साइटेडनेस नहीं दिखाई, वो तो किसी में भी नहीं है. जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया लेवल की जो मैं बात कर रहा हूँ स्टीवन स्मिथ के एग्जाम्पल पे. तो नंबर टू, आई थिंक लैक ऑफ फोर साइटेडनेस के, जिसमें फार साइटेडनेस, एक्चुअली फोर साइटेडनेस मे बी दैट्स द राइट वर्ड, आई डोंट नो. far far-sightedness, तो far-sightedness missing थी. I think, but I don't blame that because वो तो बहुत unconventional, you know, stance and technique. You would have to be an absolute genius to really foresee that and say, you know what, this guy is the real deal. I would have been really impressed. Like I said, अगर 10 साल पहले अगर कोई वाकई में इस तरह से चिल्ला रहा होता, I would have been impressed by him now. But that was not the case. तो एक तो ये, दूसरा ये कि selections and our domestic cricket has been problematic for as long as I can remember. अभी थोड़ा सा structure change हुआ है, as we heard, you know, you guys also heard from, you know, our discussion with Wasim Khan, कि structure बहुत बहुत कुछ टूटा फूटा यार पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट के अंदर. The way we've been surviving right now, it's nothing short of a miracle. और अभी भी जो अगर हम 11 प्लेयर्स ऐसे उतार देते हैं फील्ड के ऊपर कि जो हमें कुछ ना कुछ जीत के दिखा दें या दे दें, ये मैं समझता हूँ कि मुआवजे से कम नहीं है, इन माई ओपिनियन. तो our system has been failing and lacking for as long as I can remember, and I'm pretty sure as long as you guys can remember it as well. तो सिस्टम की ख़राबी और सिस्टम में जो प्लेयर्स बन रहे हैं और उनको सिलेक्शन की जा रही, वो चीज़ एग्जिस्ट करती है. मैं ऑनेस्टली नहीं समझता कि अब की पाकिस्तान टीम और स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर रेसिज्म एग्जिस्ट करता है. मेरा ओपिनियन, आई कुड बी रॉन्ग, बट आई थिंक मेरा ओपिनियन यही है. May have existed way back in the 60s and 70s. I'm actually also um, inclined to suggest कि 90s में भी नहीं exist करता था, जिसमें बहुत से लोग कहेंगे would probably disagree with me. But मेरा opinion, yeah, I don't think it existed to a toxic level जितना describe किया जाता है मीडिया के ऊपर कि यार पंजाबी और ये वो लॉबी उसकी नफरत और ये. I mean, naturally, you know, if you're a Punjabi, you're gonna have Punjabi friends in the team. You're gonna probably hang out with them more. And if you're Urdu speaking, you're probably gonna relate more with an Urdu speaking guy living in Karachi क्योंकि आपका भी same experience and journey रही है. तो एक natural चीज़ होती है. But at the same, I mean, we know for a fact कि Wasim Akram and Moin Khan, you know, Waqar Yunus, these guys were like this, really tight. Moin Khan was not even, he's not a Punjabi. Shahid Afridi, he's not a Punjabi. So these guys were tight. So like there are those examples too कि जिसमें ये like intermingling of societies and you know cultural backgrounds पाकिस्तान टीम में चलता था. और अब तो बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छा है माहौल, because माहौल अच्छे की अलामत मुझे जो लगती है और बहुत से लोगों को भी लगती है कि उस टीम के अंदर थोड़ी सी आपको फाइट दिखती है. आई थिंक हमारी टीम के अंदर फाइट है, एंड दैट्स अ रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ अ गुड एटमोसफेयर इन द टीम, जिसमें एक दूसरे के लिए लड़ने को ये लोग तैयार हैं. माइट फेल, यू नो, वन पॉइंट द अदर, बट एटलीस्ट यू सी इंटेंट. प्रीवियसली मुझे वो इंटेंट भी नहीं दिखती जिस तरह से तब ढेर हो जाते थे in the 90s and early 2000s. But yeah, that's my call and my unpopular opinion of Fawad's exclusion. Also, I think hold your horses, जो supporters हैं Fawad के who are saying, yeah, I told you so, bitches, Fawad scoring hundreds. Hold your horses. As much as it's good to, like, if you're a supporter of Fawad for whatever reason, you know, be it like exclusions from the team or you literally like the guy or the player, hold your horses on making a judgment. ये जो 10 साल की बात है, 10 साल जाया कर दिए इसके, that to me suggests के he's a success. He's a success, full stop. I don't think हम अभी उस नतीजे पे पहुंचे हैं. मुझे नहीं लगता कि फवाद is a success yet. As I said, उसके पास 5-6 साल हैं, 4-5 साल एटलीस्ट हैं उसके पास टू प्ले एट द हाईएस्ट लेवल. जब वो खेल अपना ख़त्म करेगा, then I would be more interested and inclined to question, you know, to ensure that this doesn't happen again, where a player could have played 15 years for Pakistan ends up playing 6 years or 5 years. But before we get like Ajmal, Ajmal played only 4-5 years at his peak for Pakistan. That guy should have played for 10 years for us. That's how good he was. Misbah the same, but then again, Misbah probably understandably so because that middle order was really hard to breach when he was up and coming. But Ajmal, no excuse. That guy should have played more for us. But that I know that after he's retired, after I've seen how good he was, and after he's proved that to us, he's bowled well in Dubai and UAE, bowled well in England, bowled well in South Africa, bowled well, I believe in Australia as well. I don't remember, but he's done well against all teams. India. Um, so he's a proven wicket taker, and I can say, retrospectively, yeah, he should have played more. But to say फवाद का भी बारे में अभी ये बोलना, I think it's too soon. बहुत 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 जल्दी हो जाएगा कि फवाद को भी हम पेडिस्टल पे बिठा के रख दें. He has so much to do. Hasn't even scored 1,000 runs for Pakistan yet. I believe he will. He will probably end up like he has to be consistent. And then also, at the end of his career, हम देखेंगे कि where he lies. But I think रेशल और कोई जितने सनसनी खेज जो रीजंस दिए जाते हैं फवाद की एक्सक्लूजन के, मुझे नहीं लगता कि वो रीजंस होंगे. Because it's coming from the media, so you got to take it, with a pinch of salt. And I certainly do that. Yeah. So yeah, that's my opinion of Fawad. The truth about Fawad Alam, in my opinion. Yeah, we'll be back with another one for you guys, and so don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and if you're listening to us on audio, follow us on Spotify and subscribe on Google Podcast and Apple पे भी कुछ ना कुछ subscribe वगैरह कुछ चलता है. So yeah, whatever जो भी वहाँ पर option आ रहा है, just press it, stay in touch, and we'll be back with another one. Thank you.